some sort of like a small airliner, that kind of thing?
Well, my initial thought was one of earlier today, a couple hours ago. There was talk of
What?
there was talk of
What? What?
there was talk of
What? What?
there was talk of
Oh my God, this is fucked up. What? What? Okay. Oh my God, this is fucked up. Sorry, all. I don't know, this is all messed up here, man. What? My microphone's actually switched off and it's still picking up. Okay. Oh my God, this is fucked up. Sorry, all. I don't know, this is all messed up here, man. My microphone's actually switched off and it's still picking up. Oh my God. How's that work? Sorry, all. I don't know, this is all messed up here. I know, it's all messed up. You're not supposed to hear me. My microphone's switched off. How's that work? Sorry, all. I don't know, this is all messed up here. I know, it's all messed up. You're not supposed. Alright, so now. Alright, I'm just going to stop this. Sorry, my system does not support. My system does not support this kind of high-level stuff anymore. Oh yeah. It's fixed. Yeah, well, okay. I just don't understand how it's picking up any audio because my microphone is switched off.
And so
Yeah, it's just kind of choppy. Doesn't look like my system's able to support this anymore. My PC is very. My PC is very old, and as you can hear, it's not supporting the live stream. So I'm gonna just stop it and say sorry until.
Actually, I don't really.
You see, the audio coming in from the stream is in and out, stopping. When I don't have OBS open, it's just fine.
Really Russian people.
Yeah, it could be another mic. Aha! I think I found it. No, I think I found it. I did have another mic open, you're right.
Any choice.
Let's see if this works better. Well, I need a new PC, so if you guys could please help me out. My PayPal is always available, and be back here. I'll give it another couple of minutes see if it'll catch up.
General Zaluzhny. General Zaluzhny is a Ukrainian war general, is a figure of the level of like General Mattis. He's Ukrainian chief of staff. General Zaluzhny, he states Russian blitzkrieg on day one has failed. Russian blitzkrieg on day one has failed by General Zaluzhny, his announcement. Again, in regards to Russians, yeah, I get your idea. I see that some people were against this.
It's not some. Like I know. Listen, I do.
yeah, some people were against it. It
Alright, bear with me. There's one more thing I want to try. One more thing I want to try. Just give me 1 sec. 1 sec. Fucking technology. Why does it get old? Why does it get old? Fuck. What the actual fuck happened to my stream? Can you believe this? Can you believe this? Right, I've got to try and find. Sorry for wasting your time, people, but I was onto something on this Twitter, and it just disappeared. Let me see if I can find it. Just give me 1 sec. 1 sec. What was I listening to? Well, I hope they stopped the war. Oh, there we go. Good. Oh, I think they stopped it. Oh, so I see. Oh, there it is. There it is. There we go. I think we're getting somewhere. Seems to be playing, but I don't hear anything. Just gotta find it if there's a desktop that's. Oh, here. Close that one. And close that one. Open that one. I don't know what they've done. I think we have a situation here where my desktop is starting to say bye-bye, which means I'm not long for YouTube unless I get a replacement, like an updated one. This one is about at least 6, 7, perhaps 8 years old. So this is not. Fuck. Fuck. Now playing, so why can't I hear it? Probably because. Probably because. Yeah. Oh. Yes, very possible I have that. Very disappointing, I tell you something. I can't hear anything coming off my desktop. Let's try this. Hold on a minute. Oh.
So I'm gonna wait a few minutes and wait for everybody to transfer over, and we'll start the group in about 2 or 3 minutes.
There we go. Very old computer, very old. So it's going to take a couple of minutes to catch up to anything I do. Oh, and now I'm getting a issue with my OBS. Nothing coming through on the desktop, as you can tell. Crickets. Let me go see if this just maybe it's this. Maybe let me try something else. I can't tell if the crickets is coming from the app that it's playing through. Let me go see if I can get some.
All right, we
Oh, here we go.
back.
Here we go.
Let's wait a few more minutes so that we get the rest transferred here.
Okay, it looks like.
Meanwhile, I'll try to get David in. He's currently.
Okay, sounds like the delays are coming from the app itself, so maybe we're okay. I suspect we are.
Okay, if you could just send me his info so I can make sure he gets transferred in here.
Yeah, I DM'd him. I'm gonna DM you his Twitter handle as well. 1 second.
Okay.
Right, so since the space is not that big, okay, I'm gonna add Patrick here. Here he is. Just tossing the mic. Okay, we got Patrick back in. Let's see if I can get David. Yeah, he basically messaged me, told me it's not that hectic currently in Lviv, so not that bad. It's kinda odd that they specifically targeted Ivano-Frankivsk air base and also Lutsk air base. I think something near Ivano-Frankivsk was also hit, but pretty much it. In regards of Western Ukraine, I mean.
One of our listeners, Steve, has dug up that tank. The destroyed tank is actually from 2015. Not sure about the BMP yet. So thank you to Steve for doing that. We always appreciate it when people can give us good information. All right. Well, we have our speakers here. I guess I'll start approving some of these requests, add some variety to it. If anyone has any questions, feel free to DM our request, and we'll just kind of roll through the requests. And again,
Stanislav?
Yeah, I'm here.
I wanted to say something. Go ahead.
Lay down some ground rules. Just lay down some ground rules. If you have a question or want to speak, for y'all who don't know him, he's very knowledgeable. He could probably answer most questions that you have. And let's just keep positive vibes. And yeah, and that's about it.
Okay,
What
let's
were we
get.
gonna say, Walter?
Yeah, I'm getting David in, and Stanislav, if you wanted to say something, go ahead.
I'm mostly checking out the feeds from Kaliningrad, and so far the news is there is no news coming out of Kaliningrad. They're reporting absolutely nothing in the local papers. So find that as weird as you want.
That's not surprising. I doubt they'd risk using assets from there. That's bordering two NATO countries. Walter, I have one thing for the group. The new Russian ambassador to the UN. This is according to Jeff Selden over at VOA News. He said openly that he's talking about "quote unquote" liberating Ukraine. He says, "I'm sure the people of Ukraine will be happy when they are liberated from the regime that occupied them." Following the Security Council meeting.
Well, it's like more propaganda. Like
oh yeah, I don't say it just to annoy you, just so people know the kind of stuff they're spewing.
There's like incessant stream of lies and nonsense. David, how are you? How's it going?
Tired, man. I haven't slept hardly at all in 2 or 3 days, as I know a lot of y'all as well. But we're here. I went and got cash this morning. It was a little crazy. It's like a parking lot outside. I think everybody's either leaving to either away to another town or they're attempting to go to the border. But I've heard from several people that the borders are closed, which to leave, that doesn't make sense. Can somebody help me understand that? What's Article something or other? Why would they not let people leave right now who can legally cross the border?
Well, I haven't heard that like confirmed somewhere, so I believe it's a rumor.
Yeah,
that shouldn't be trusted.
Where, yeah, if you or I mean, if somebody has like a link to go to, I kind of Google, but I'm Googling in English so that's not super helpful. But if there's somewhere like, where you can get a confirmed status of the border, I would really like that.
Yeah, this definitely is there. Actually, there are webcams
There should be no sound coming through. Am I correct? Oh. Tell me if there's no sound. There should be no sound coming through other than me.
Advance of the Russian tank columns coming from Crimea, specifically. This is the southern section.
All right, that should be fixed up.
And they push also from east, just north of Luhansk. And something is going on around Kharkiv. They're burning Russian tanks around Kharkiv.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Huge fireball explosion now in Ivano-Frankivsk.
Right now, again?
Yeah. Sorry, right now again, yeah.
Okay, let me check what's going on in Ivano-Frankivsk.
So the airspace is still closed, correct?
Okay. I think we got something fixed up here. Thank you for joining. I apologize for all the technical nonsense, but until my PC gets replaced, I'm just gonna have to live with it. So the war in Ukraine, Russia seems to have invaded Ukraine. We're listening to a live stream called the Russia-Ukraine Conflict Zone, and I think we should just listen in and see how it goes when they talk. They seem to, for some reason or other, stop. Earlier on, it was full of people. They were talking. As soon as I went live, can't figure it out. But oh, of course, because I stopped it. There we go.
Yeah, as far as I know.
Yeah, a while ago, I mean, they weren't military, but they were like sort of Bell helicopter-ish. I mean, I saw like 15 of them just one by one going in like into the Lviv airport here, like to land. And then I've seen, which I've never seen, I don't know what they were doing, but, and then I've seen just some of the like small prop, older, like maybe like the small Antonov models and stuff, a couple of those coming in that don't show up on flight radar. But I've never seen like that whole parade of those like kind of civilian looking helicopters.
Trying to figure out what happened in Frankivsk, Ivano-Frankivsk, right?
I'll give you a quick update on what I have to do. I'm going to leave it running and listen to them as they come through. But I have to step away and give this little doggy. You see this little doggy here? This one, she needs to go outside and take a pee-pee. Want to go pee-pee? Want to go outside? Yes, I bet you do. So, that's what I'm getting at. Sorry. This is a one-man show, folks. So yeah, I'm just going to keep the feed going, and I will be back
right now.
Yeah, I just retweeted somebody's video.
Yeah, I'd like to know too. I was just there last Monday. We spent the night for Valentine's Day.
Elliot, did you want to say something?
Hi, yeah. I just wanted to say I've done some cursory research about the border and potential closings. I've not been able to find anything concrete, but it may be related to the states of emergency currently in place and the potential martial law orders.
Yeah, martial law is in place. I mean, checkpoints are being organized. Police is, checking and
Yeah.
kind of suspicious.
I'm just saying the border closings might be related to that.
David, when you mention the border, you're referring to what border? Poland or?
Polish.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the west, right outside Lviv. You should go straight west to there's like one of the main crossings there. But I mean, what I've been told is all those Polish borders are closed, from what I've heard.
That may be
Medyka
true.
is not.
I know Poland is also under a state of emergency right now as well.
Yeah, Medyka is not closed as so far as I can see. There's an 11-minute wait to cross the border, so that's pretty normal.
Right. One thing that may play a role in that is Poland is somewhat about to face a refugee crisis, and I'm sure that they want to have that under control and be prepared for that before tons of people start pouring across their border. So if it is closed, which it hasn't been confirmed that it is, it may
Let
just
me
be
get
them
the
getting
Polish
ready.
border guards live feed up, and I'll report back to you guys.
Okay, sounds good.
I was gonna say almost 11 minutes while ago. I said on the best day I've never gotten through there under like an hour and a half.
M, did you have something to say?
Yes, good morning from Cairo, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
I would like to ask about the realistic implications of triggering Article 4. What can actually materialize out of that? What decisions can materialize on the ground of reality to counter this act of aggression after triggering Article 4? What discussions can take place, and what can those discussions bring forward to change the situation on the ground of reality?
Well, Article 4 is just everyone getting the opportunity to bring their issues of concern to the table. And so, I mean, really anything could become a reality if everyone would agree on it. So, invoking Article 4 is just to get everyone together and start the process of getting on the same page. Right now, we are all on the same page. But Article 4, I believe it was made in 1949. So it's just there for everyone to get together and come to a consensus about how to handle the issues at hand. Whether that's NATO involvement in the situation, everyone getting together and say we need to make sure NATO doesn't get involved, everyone getting together and saying we need to extend membership invitations to certain countries to counter this threat, or we need to bolster defenses. It can really, Article 4 can really result in whatever the member states deem necessary. Walter, do you have anything to add on that?
No, I wouldn't comment on Article 4. Maybe Patrick, as he should obviously be more knowledgeable.
I mean, you guys have basically covered it. It's a forum for airing grievances. We may see some additional deployments out of it. I don't expect we'll see much else. Frankly, there's not a whole lot NATO can do unless it's willing to insert its own troops into the region, and it has steadfastly said, multiple nations have, that they are not willing to do that. So I doubt we see anything more than maybe a redeployment, certainly diplomatic condemnations, and possibly some allied talks about what the game plan looks like moving forward, though ideally that would have already been done. But yeah, I think that's about all we're probably likely to get out of it.
Yeah, I can just read a very brief one sentence from NATO, Article 4. Article 4 says the parties will consult together whenever, in the opinion of any of them, the territorial integrity, political independence, or security of any of the parties is threatened. End quote. So it's just kind of a kickoff meeting to gather NATO representatives and discuss.
I'm reading these kind of so gullible and useless tweets. So Russians take to the streets, stand up to Putin. You can topple your dictator if you just find the courage to do so. Ukrainians did it in 2005 and 2014. You can too. They don't want to do this. This is the problem. They are complicit.
I agree and disagree. They are complicit, but there has to be the first step.
Right, but it's a good point, but I haven't seen a single, a protest in Russia against the war in Ukraine. Actually, I have seen one. 6 people in the hall of Moscow protested. That's it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that broader sentiment of Russian opinion. Dr. Stan,
it's probably me. Just call me Stan because it's so much easier. So Medica, which is like I think the largest Ukrainian crossing. Yeah, what's its name? It's backed up maybe by about 10 cars, so no big deal, and about 25 tractor trailers. There is a blue light flashing all the way at the end, so I figure the police on the Ukrainian side are directing traffic or are going to direct traffic. If I go on the Polish website that tells me about border traffic and the border guards, they tell me they can process about 71 cars an hour at that facility. So if you think thousands of people are going to come, it's going to create a huge, like 10, 15 kilometer mess. And we don't see that right now.
Is that why there's sirens being reported in Medica?
It's possible, yeah. On the right-hand side of the feed, I can see there's also digging equipment, and they're doing something. I don't know what the hell that is that they're digging, but yeah, there's 3 diggers out there.
Would you be able to just say where you got that feed and what it's titled in case anyone wants to?
It's on the Polish website called podkarpackie.gov.pl. I can spell that for you.
Yeah,
because
yeah,
Polish is like a really bad language. So it's podkarpackie.kas.gov.pl. And from there, you can find multiple webcams. Where is this? Under border crossings.
Could you maybe post that link up above so we could just click on it?
Yeah, I'll take a screenshot because this is on my laptop. So, and I'm talking to you from the phone. So, what a mess.
Cool, no worries.
Anyway, enjoy, guys.
Do we have any info about those Turkish A400s that were supposedly in Borispoli, I reckon? What happened to them?
I have not heard any information. I can look into it, but as of now, I have not heard anything.
If they've taken off, it's definitely not on ADSP.
Well, this brings me to my second question that I would like to ask you guys. Do we think, or is it real or true that Putin's calculus is right on this and that he will actually get away with it and maybe survive those sanctions and continue to basically promote the concept of might is right and using interventionism to change political realities in the near abroad and land grabs and basically continue to challenge the international security order and international law and get away with it one time after another, and what we can actually do to stop this from continuing, because right now it's basically appealing to despots, autocrats, dictators, small countries all over the world. And given the current disinformation warfare that's taking the world by storm, and the projection of the image of a strong man who can challenge the international system and win, quote unquote, because that's not winning basically, but to a lot of people that seems like winning. How can we reverse this? What can we do? What are the actions that governments and systems and institutions can do to actually do something to stop this from continuing 1 year after another, 1 decade after another?
Well, I would tell you that unless the West is prepared to do more than simply sanction, yes, he's probably going to get away with it. He'll get sanctioned. He'll probably try to ride out those sanctions, probably with the help of China. He'll probably succeed. And he may, in fact, conquer and begin the subjugation of 44 million people in Ukraine. As far as what we can do to stop this, I'm sorry to say most of the deterrence measures have lapsed. I mean, the time to do this was last year, late last year. Now, the goal for NATO especially must be to inflict enough pain on Russia that it chooses to withdraw, and that won't be easy. I think you'll probably see, if NATO manages to get the courage to do it, significant support and assistance for the Ukrainians. Even at this late stage, I would argue for NATO contractors, read mercenaries, on the Flying Tigers model, or on the same model as the Russians assisting the North Vietnamese anti-air defense crews during the Vietnam War, or flying MiGs for the North Koreans during the Korean War. If what we've been watching for the past, a little under 6 hours now, has told us anything, it's that the Ukrainians need air support and they need air defense, and they need it badly. And if the West is willing to relearn the art of proxy war, then I think perhaps we have a chance at sending them some deniable assets to help them do this. If we don't, I'm not sure that arms and equipment are going to be sufficient for them to turn this around.
Okay, we're back.
Yeah, it's like more of a resolute response with the force, actually. That's what he understands.
Okay, what I'll do is address the people in the chat. How would you like to be recognized for who you are? Okay, I'm going to go to the top. Alrighty, Clout, you've been pretty active. Thank you very much for joining. And Dave Delafiore, thank you for joining. Welcome. Henry Hansen, always good to see you. Saint Powell, howdy. Thank you for coming in. And once I recognize you all, I'm going to go through and read what you've been saying. Hello, Wild Eden. I haven't seen you for a while. At least I haven't live streamed for a while. That's probably why. Okay, so let me go through see if there's anything that I should address. Yeah, about the echoing. Sorry about that. That's what happens when you have old equipment. Biden is going to bomb Rhode Island. It will only take one bomb, and it's gone. Before you go nuts and spend money, take it to a computer repair place and see if they can help. Well, the thing is, I already got a notification that this computer will not support Windows 11. because it's too old. So, yeah, I agree with you. A computer repair place, but there's nothing really to repair other than doing a cleaning. They can't, you know, they're not going to make make the processor or the bus any quicker. Malware does build up, but I don't think I do my malware checks quite frequently. Who's rooting for Russia? Henry? Fair enough. You know what I find really interesting about this war is that Russia is a Eastern Orthodox Christian, and Ukraine is Eastern Orthodox Christian. So as far as Jesus is concerned, obviously there ain't one. NATO is an absolute waste of time in my opinion, because the whole idea of NATO is to stop this sort of shit, and they didn't. They can't. Useless. If people chose where the taxes went, we'd have problems. Well, maybe. Well, we have problems anyway, so I don't see how that would change. NATO is just a useless burden with no good purpose. Yes, I agree with you, Cloud. You just hear my beautiful voice. It's funny. I assume you're American? I'm not. I'm Canadian. I should actually put that Canadian flag up there, right? In the corner there, just so you know. Oh, so St. Power thinks NATO is not part of it? Doesn't, okay, fair enough. Cold War was really World War III, maybe. So now we're in World War IV right now, do you think, guys? The US should be supporting Russia. Why? Russia's the aggressor here. Listen, we might be surprised, and Ukraine might come up with some incredible defense and take out a whole bunch of Russians, which the Russians wouldn't have expected. You know, the unexpected is always what will arise. That's the one rule of war. One rule of history. Vlad has lost his marbles. Kind of think so. Yes, Wild Eden, Russia does occupy. Excellent. So I'm going to see if we can bring back the audio and see if there's
in terms of how long will it take. Well, what will happen? I think if they steamroll Ukraine very quickly, then it's over. There's nothing like maybe that NATO would be able to fund an insurgency campaign, but it really depends on how long Ukraine lasts. If Ukraine lasts, if this begins to go on for months, then maybe, yeah, deniable assets.
Months.
Maybe.
Crazy.
My problem with anything, I'm not sure how much they'll get away with deniable. They could empty out the arsenals from the other ex-Soviet bloc NATO member states, transfer any equipment they have, but after that, it's going to be very, very, very obvious when, air quotes, deniable things start turning up in Ukraine. Like the type of stuff they need is like serious air defense equipment. It's like either Patriots or equivalent
serious
Western technology, which will just be obvious when it turns up because it will have, it will be very hard to move away. Now that will be a massive escalation. So you can't get away from that. And if you're going to escalate to that level, then you have to send people to protect them. And then
people are going to die. People are dying already, I'm sure.
Much bigger.
Fuck.
So I honestly, yeah. So short term, if it ends in the next couple of weeks or in the next single-digit months, game over. Maybe insurgency, maybe not. But I think to draw comparisons back to, I know we're early days, but if you were to draw comparisons back to, say, Poland in 39, then didn't really react. Western Europe didn't really react until they were attacked in the following year. So there's a big lag here, and there's an even bigger lag in that the vast majority of Western Europe has not recapitalized their armored weapons, or only in the early stages of doing so. So it's just not. It would take huge amounts of U.S. willpower, which I just don't think the left or the right are prepared to. There's no consensus. There's so I just don't see it happening, which is a really bleak outlook. But yeah.
Okay. That's what we're talking about. Russia, Ukraine. Ooh.
Did you have a question or something you want to say, Elliot?
How about that?
Mariupol apparently is under control. The central part and the outskirts. It's fine.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, okay, I was having trouble there for a minute with connectivity. I just wanted to say I think it's a little too late for the West, with regards to arming Ukraine. They didn't do enough. They waited way too long to make this happen. Unfortunately, I don't think there's much the West can do at this point, with hostilities already at the point that they are, to help better Ukraine's situation much.
I thought Biden was going to make a speech.
There is a lot that can be done. Weapons should be delivered.
Wasn't Biden going to make a speech? If he is talking or has spoken or whatever, can somebody let me know? As far as I'm aware, he was supposed to talk 2 hours ago, and then it was pushed forward to 1 hour ago, and now I don't know if anything's happened at all.
It should be
right, but it's going to be a lot more difficult than it was prior, simply because of these hostilities and already the attacks on infrastructure we've seen within the last few hours.
Yeah, but
and we have to think it's not going to be like arming rebels in Syria.
No, it's
not
that
going to be like
difficult.
that.
At this point, it's pretty simple. The border is in between Ukraine and Poland. It's pretty much, porous of sorts. If there is a will, it could be delivered via land route.
Oh, sure, it's definitely very possible. I'm just saying it's not enough at this point. It's way too little, too late. Not to say we shouldn't do it. It's just that it's not enough.
I have to agree with Walter on this one. I think that there's a lot that can be done. Before tonight, there was intel that the United States was urging Ukraine to establish a land route to get weapons to them. Like they had seen this coming, where we would be able to fly planes into Ukraine, deliver weapons. And not to name drop, but this is kind of where if you look into past conflicts, this is where the CIA has gotten involved. And I'm not talking about arming rebels in this situation, but about covertly dealing weapons to people who need weapons for national security interests. So I do think that if there's something that can help them and wouldn't name drop the United States would find a way to give it to them, especially when the whole world is on the same side as the United States.
Yep.
I just want to add something to this. If you actually had good NATO leadership, it frankly wouldn't matter what deniable assets you send in there, because all you'd have to say is, "Oh, well, you're liberating the Ukrainians. Yeah, well, these are Ukrainian troops. Sure, Vlad. What are you going to do? You invade Ukraine? You're going to start a war with NATO too?" Vlad understands he does not want a war with NATO. If we wanted to push a proxy war, I mean, really push one, I'm talking Ukrainian, quote unquote, F-15s manned by NATO pilots. We could do it if we wanted to. You know, Ukrainian Patriot batteries, quote unquote, manned by NATO personnel. You could do that. But the problem is the West simply doesn't have the leadership to play chicken with Putin on this. It just doesn't exist. And really, those kind of dangerous recourse is just about the only thing that's going to save Ukraine right now. We had months to do all the smart things. We didn't do any of them, and now we're down to the dangerous things. Frankly,
can I chime in here with the border, Poland,
sure,
Ukraine?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I started typing in the other feeds. The third one I got to was Korczowo, which is slightly north of Przemyśl. And I can see on the Polish border side, there's about 15, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, about 15 Green Army trucks waiting to cross the border from the Polish side. I figured there's some sort of supply. And on the other border, I can see there's about 60 cars, 70 cars, and it's a very tight shot coming in from Ukraine. So I figure there's a hell of a lot more behind that. I tried to, by the way, send this to you guys, but I can't send you guys direct messages, it seems.
So
I'll
it's
try to
like
get on.
traffic jam, right?
I'll try
Sorry,
to get
one more
on
time, Walter?
It's like a traffic jam in there, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much a traffic jam. From the Ukrainian side, it just looks like now everything is starting to snarl. And from the Polish side, there's a lot of green.
Osik?
Apologies.
Yeah, I'm trying to get in and change my DM settings. So if anyone sees anything, they're able to send it my way. As far as weapons coming over the border, I think that we're going to see. I think that Poland's going to be the route for all of that. And then if this extends further, whether it be weeks or months, I do think that we're going to see other countries join NATO membership, which will complicate things, but also shore up. Even if Russia runs through Ukraine, they will hit a.
What do you guys think? This is going to carry on for weeks and months? This is what they're talking. Can you conceive of that at all? I mean, is it possible? Weeks and months for a war I mean, Biden has been telling us for something like 2 weeks now that yes, Russia's going to invade Ukraine. Yes, Russia's going to invade Ukraine. But other than going to the United Nations and blah, 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 talk, nothing was done to help Ukraine or to delay the attack from Russia. I mean, the door was always open. There was no concentration of forces allied with Ukraine to give the message to Russia that stay away. Nothing. No wonder Russia went in. Putin's not stupid. He's an imperialist and an aggressor and a fucking psychopath, but he's certainly not stupid.
They'll have to choose whether to continue or go to war with NATO.
Yeah, it's at this point I have a hard time, figuring out what's going on the front lines so far.
Ukraine cuts diplomatic ties with Russia. Kinda obvious. But yeah. Ukraine cuts diplomatic ties with Russia.
Real quick, someone said a while ago about all the green trucks waiting to come in from the Polish border. What exactly is that?
That's me. So I can tell you from Kosovo, there is a still shot from about 7 minutes ago. I don't have any news about it. I just see what it is.
Can anybody else kind of speculate what that might be, or what like to come into Ukraine? You mean, or I mean, does it
Yeah,
look
this
like
is
that's
leaving
what it is?
Poland. It's leaving Poland. This is the exit from Poland into Ukraine, this shot.
So someone speculate. What do you think that like might be? What would logic tell you?
I think we're
Weapons.
bordering things we should not be broadcasting with that, possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah, possibly.
No, I agree with that. I mean, I'm sure y'all have heard in the last space, we don't really broadcast any Ukrainian troop movements. It's mainly Russian troop movements and Russian activities that we talk about for obvious reasons.
It could be anything from food rations to medical supplies to maybe light ammunition or anything like that crossing from Poland into the Ukraine, but we simply just don't know. And there is absolutely no point in speculating what the contents of the cargo would be.
At this stage, I'd probably think that's likely medical or supply in nature for anyone who's coming through that checkpoint who may happen to be injured, wounded, in need of some kind of treatment. I doubt it's something that they're preparing to send over the border necessarily.
Yes, I would say it's medical. My assessment would be it's medical as well.
What about things for refugees, like tents and heaters, and because is there going to be a humanitarian crisis now in Ukraine? Or are the countries on the border of Ukraine going to have to deal with these refugees? It's building up to be a fucking mess. It looks like hour by hour. Let's listen in.
That's the first thing I could think of.
I could suppose it is medical as well, especially since the allied or the neighbors of the conflict zone have really bad medical system. But this is Romania I'm talking about. It is like, it's non-existent practically.
Yeah, that feed has now been turned off, just so you guys know. So whatever it was, it was.
Well, at least someone is listening, probably. The other point that was used over the last couple of days, basically someone like Snowden basically saying that the media is hyping up for the war. That's like sheer stupidity right there from a clear traitor. That's number one. And a couple of journalists who actually worked in Syria tried to bash the open source intelligence community on the internet, saying that whatever they are doing is not going to influence Russian behavior. And if anything, it's going to amplify Russia's might. And that there is a boom in the OSN community, and that some people are doing this just for fun, or actually have their own malicious agendas and whatnot, and try to bash the OSN community as people who would actually wreak more damage than actually expose the actions of Russia and provide enthusiasts, citizens, internet users with more information on what's happening on the ground, and making Russian action clear to the world and emptying all pretexts of war from their, unexistent meanings.
Yeah, media kinda. I get your point in regards of media, especially curiously enough, when I called my parents in Lviv, just as it started, actually, some time passed already. The first bombs have fallen already, and they turned on the TV, and there was nothing on. The Ukrainian media didn't even report it whatsoever. Only then they started like gradually to kind of kick in, but the delay was significant, like a couple of hours at least. So yeah, whoever wants to request a mic or speak something. Rice, Graham Rice, I believe. You have the mic. You requested. You wanted something to say.
Everyone here?
Yeah, we can hear you somewhat.
Yeah, sorry for the quality. I just want to say hello, everybody. You want to find out some information about me? Just hop onto my account there. Should give you all the description you need. But in relation to what was happening with the media and stuff, at least from my perspective, and this is just me speaking as an individual. I was aware that obviously some media outlets will have their intentions for whatever reason maybe. So I refrained a lot from taking quote unquote a side in this, in the sense that I didn't post or anything during this. I've rather just listened as much as I could. And, I myself was a little bit sort of shocked to a certain extent, but after realizing the extent of open source intelligence that was actually done, I began to see the picture much more clearly. Again, I don't rely on media for my primary sources, and I'm sure most people here will not. But again, I think what this has shown is that there may be some credit to be given to media organizations, but at the same time, as with everything, to be taken with a pinch of salt. That's just my 2 cents on that.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. It's not black and white as it sounded when I started to describe it. Yeah, I agree absolutely. I believe we had Matt.
Just a quick update.
Sure.
This is... Sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. This is news from a local news station. Apparently, there's NATO vehicles coming in, but unfortunately, they've had an accident. 3 of them were involved in an accident, and they're being withheld apparently until the road they are on is completely cleared to provide priority for military vehicles. This is on the DN7, close to Kalimanesht. This is what the location is called.
Near Bucharest or somewhere else?
Vâlcea, Râmnic Vâlcea, Sibiu. This
okay,
is
I know where Sibiu is. Okay, it's beyond Carpathians.
Yeah, beyond Carpathians, on the way to Moldova, I guess.
Let the lieutenant drive, they said. It'll be fun, they said.
Yeah. So Matt Monroe, you did request as well. Did you wanted to say something? All right, so since Matt is not in, I'm gonna remove him from speakers. I'm gonna try to add someone in who requested. Michael D.
while he's coming in, what do people think should be done, if anything, about Transnistria, so that Russian enclave in Moldova?
I personally think that Moldova doesn't play a huge role in this. I mean, politically, economically, and militarily, I don't think it has that much of an impact compared to Ukraine.
It's more that there's Ukrainian troops garrisoned on the border with Transnistria as a defense against whatever Russia might do from there. So if those guys could be freed up in some way, that would be useful.
Well, frankly, if Zelensky wanted to do NATO a huge favor and possibly engender some goodwill, he'd wipe out the OGRF now and allow Romania and Moldova to come to a compromise, because if Moldova goes, that is going to annoy the Romanians no end.
Yeah. That epoch, I just added you. Wanted to say something? TRE4.
Hello. Can you guys hear me?
We can, yep.
All right, great. I just wanted to come into the space. I've been listening for a long time, and I just want you to know I come in peace. But I'm a bit of a leftist in America, and what I mean to bring to this is not for conflict of any sort, but also just information from you guys. And as I look, I am sort of uninformed about the situation, and I think a lot of people here might be. And I'm just curious, what separates this from something like 4 years ago in Crimea or in Georgia in 2008? What is the main differences from what's happening now? And that's my only question.
Well, the main difference in 2014, Russia tried to get this plausible deniability, at least initially, and still kind of push this idea that it's in Crimea, for example, these were little green men, initial plausible deniability. Then they pulled this fake referendum and still danced around with this plausible deniability of the fake referendum in Crimea ever since. In eastern Ukraine, obviously these were Russian forces to begin with, but still they danced around under the label of quote-unquote separatists. So they kind of tried to maintain this plausible deniability. At this point of time, it's just blatant, open Russian invasion of Ukraine. Just, literally Russia invaded Ukraine without even, trying to hide it.
Gotcha. And I guess a separate question to that would be, I know Akash brought this up hours ago, just about the idea of trying to convince a strong political response from America. I think what you see in the West is a large sentiment against what happened in the Middle East for so many years. And I think that's part of the battle that Biden has to navigate. And the more I learn about the situation, the more I do support a strong action. And but just to kind of put a perspective on the pressures on the West and NATO, it's a tough situation, but one that I hope we can navigate. That's all.
Thank you.
In terms of going a bit further, the reason why this is very much different from 2014, 2015 is that Crimea and Donbass were limited, relatively bloodless, less so in Donbass, but definitely in Crimea there was very little bloodletting that happened. And they were very defined geographic areas. So it was very difficult, and they had just happened too quickly. So this is what I was saying before, is that if this happens really, really quickly again, and we've already gone far way above the level of violence that we saw back then too. So that's the other critical difference, is that back then it was some paratroopers and very much deniable assets, and now it's tanks, thermobaric weapons, artillery, This is a many gears up from what we saw before. That's all I've got to say.
Yeah, I would just have to second that and say that Crimea would have been considered more of a regional conflict, and this would be more of like an international crisis. Patrick?
Thanks, Osik. Tree 4, from a purely NATO perspective, I differentiate it like this. In 2014, we had two fairly peripheral conflicts in Ukraine, Crimea and Donbass. Now we have what looks to be the potential annexation of the entire state. And that puts Russia on the border with Romania, Poland, Slovakia, and Hungary, 4 NATO allies. Russia has shown no compunction about using gray zone operations against Poland, and then cyber hacking against Norway, and domestic interests, private interests in the United States. Allowing them greater border access to NATO is a security threat to NATO. And I think that is, as someone who is not a fan of Biden, I think that is probably the best way he has to sell this, because it has the advantage of being true. You can tell them, look, Ukraine is not necessarily a NATO ally, but they are friendly to us. They're in trouble. And if they go, then we're in a worse security situation then than we are now. And the more we do now to help prevent that, the better off we will be in the long run. Humble opinion, I think that's probably his best tack to take here.
I agree with that, and I think there's a tad bit of irony to that situation, because one of Putin's, I guess now I can call it excuses, one of Putin's excuses for going after Ukraine was the encroachment of NATO. And his alternative is to bring his country closer to NATO, which I think, and I've thought since the beginning, is kind of ironic and a self-fulfilling prophecy. Did you have something to say, Tobis?
I'll just chime in with the Zelensky tweeted. We will give weapons to anyone who wants to defend the country. Be ready to support Ukraine in the squares of our cities.
Doctor?
Yeah, I just want to ask if anybody knew anything about the Hungarian situation. I know there's a Hungarian minority that lives just across the border there from Hungary. Just a question.
Well, Hungary tried to coax them into accepting Hungarian passports. They kind of fomented this sort of a tension of sorts on ethnic grounds, but there's nothing, significant in there. So I didn't see it being a potential hotspot or anything. So pretty much it.
Apparently, Orban, somebody accidentally tweeted a picture of a meeting Orban was having with his ministers earlier, and in the background there's a picture on a big screen saying they expect like 600,000 refugees, but like I don't know if it was like a worst case scenario or whatever, because they quickly deleted it and obviously didn't have any more info. But yeah, and screw Viktor Orban.
Yeah, absolutely, screw him.
Tobis?
Yes. Hey, as a German living in Romania, I'm asking myself, what role does Moldova has in this? I have no clue. I honestly didn't even know that this country exists before I moved here. Yeah, what's their role? How are they? How are the relations to Moldova between Ukraine, Russia, or Moldova? I don't know. I just saw that we have someone from Bucharest here. Maybe he knows more about it. And the second is, will we see stronger east flank of the NATO in the future? So like heavy troops or many troops being in Romania, Poland, and the Baltic states.
Well, Moldova Moldova actually has a significant ethnic Ukrainian population, but they actually, most of them live in this Transnistria, to be honest. Everything else, it's mostly ethnically Romanian. Moldova is on good terms with Ukraine ever since Maya Sandu was elected. Prior to that, they had a pro-Russian president, thus there were problems. Obviously, Moldova has this long-lasting issue of Transnistria, which is a festering wound in Moldova created by Russia in the 1990s. It's like similarly the same thing that Donbass or Abkhazia or South Ossetia, the ones that Russia created to destabilize these countries. And it has a small unit or a couple of units in there as a local, armed forces, but they're kind of negligible of sorts, but still not completely. They pose a somewhat of a threat. Yeah, pretty much it. I'd rather let someone from Moldova speak. Konks, for example. From Romania, pardon. Sorry.
Yeah, it's no problem. In my opinion, and from my experience, Moldova is part Romanian, but has a lot of influence from the 90s, as Walter said. Mainly, the majority of Moldovians want to be sided with Romania and want to have their country be a part of Romania as it once was. And I think it's only just a border between NATO and the Ukraine and Russia, which isn't a part of it, of course. And for the person, the other discussions or question before, I think that mainly the big issue with this and why it's drawing so much attention and heat is because not only they are threatening other countries, they are basically just violating human rights, and anyone that wants to defend the human rights automatically becomes an enemy. And I think that's the main issue here, and why it's different from 2016 or the other events happening with Russia taking different parts of Ukraine. The casualties is what is most problematic. I hope that answers your questions.
Yeah.
I just wanted to chime in really quick. Unconfirmed, I'm gonna play back the video to try to hear it because I have it playing in the background and didn't. But there's a report of a very loud
I hear
explosion.
reports of explosions in Kyiv.
Yes. Important update is Germany said that it will provide massive help to Poland in the case of a refugee influx to the country. And just
Speaking
about,
of Germany,
I was just going to say just about breaking news updates like that. If you have something and you know it's verified and you can verify it, or if you want to try to verify something and you're a speaker, feel free to speak up and come through with those breaking news updates because sometimes they're hard to keep up with. But as a community, we can band together and try to stay on top of it.
well, apparently the head of the German army posted a very strange comment on LinkedIn this morning, and part of it translates into English as follows. And the Bundeswehr, the army that I'm privileged to lead, is more or less bare. The options that we can offer the politicians to support the alliance are extremely limited. We also coming and we were not able to get through with our arguments to draw the conclusions from the Crimean annexation and implement them. This doesn't feel good. I'm pissed off. So just as Patrick said earlier, it seems that the realistic options for the West are more or less limited to serious economic sanctions and institutional pressure at this point. And it seems that Putin's calculus on the conflict is right on the money, unfortunately.
Right. Well, German has the Luftwaffe with the Iron Crosses that I kind of hate are still there. They're pretty good, but as far as ground troops and basic defense, the United States provides a lot of Germany's basic defense with their military bases in Germany. So I can see how that they would be unprepared for to take to the ground with a major conflict.
The Luftwaffe is also currently a shambles. Their pilots have been using civilian aircraft to keep up their flight hours to maintain their flight status for at least the past 4 years because too many of their airframes are down for maintenance.
Chronic. I did not know that. That is news to me, so I appreciate that.
Oh yeah, go read Hans-Peter Bartel's reports. He's the parliamentary commissioner on the armed forces, retired a couple of years ago. They are just, they're long, they're a little involved, but they are just devastating. I'm not sure if the new parliamentary commissioner has been doing as good of a job, but the situation has not improved.
Yeah, absolutely. The spending is, I mean, it's ridiculous at this point. But you'd think that the German government would actually increase their spending given the current security matrix and what has been happening over the last 10 years. But I did some work for Rheinmetall for a while, and Rheinmetall is on a roll right now. They're selling a lot of systems to a lot of countries, and they are developing a lot of systems. Some of them are just perfectly created for the European theater. That's regarding the Bundeswehr, for instance, but there is no investments being made by the German government. And I confirm Patrick's piece of information on the airframes as well. It's just it's just ridiculous at this point.
Hi, first of all, great job and keep it up. I want to ask your thoughts on a scenario, which is I'm from Bucharest, Romania. What are your thoughts on Russia possibly attacking Moldova just to probably get a reaction from Romania and therefore a NATO reaction? Is there any strategic value in this, or is it like a no-way scenario? I'd be inclined to say it's a no-way scenario, but I'm really curious to hear you out.
I would say a no-way scenario. I think if in my personal opinion, if Putin doesn't want a NATO response, a NATO military response would, first off, we would decapitate the head of state, first off, which would be him. So I don't see him provoking a NATO military response as being in his game plan.
I see. Thank you.
I would tend to agree with that. Putin wants to be able to conduct this operation in peace, relatively from NATO. The last thing he wants is necessarily to provoke us. Might he go for Moldova? It's possible. He has forces in the region. If Ukraine collapses fairly swiftly, he might think he can get away with it. But as far as deliberately antagonizing Romania into an aggressive response, I doubt that's what he's looking for at this point, frankly.
And just to follow up on the massive explosion in Kiev, I have the Kiev Square video pulled up, and I rewinded it back 5 minutes, listened to it, and didn't hear anything. So it's either on the outskirts of Kiev, far beyond the listening range of the city center, or it is misinformation.
No, it's I have a definite source that stated that he heard distant explosions. So it's somewhere outside of the city, but far.
Are you guys seeing any evidence of attacks on infrastructure, whether that be military or civilian? Because I'm just anticipating there to be a lot of cyber attacks and retaliation in that way, since it's one of the only avenues they have right
Oh yeah, a ton of it. You mean Russian attacks on Ukrainian infrastructure?
now. I mean retaliation from Western
Oh no, so
or
far,
unnamed. Okay.
yeah, so far I haven't seen any of that. Walter, have you guys picked up on any of that?
No.
Yeah, I haven't either.
Yeah, there seems to be all one way.
Yeah, and I can see NATO allies in the U.S. doing, engaging in cyber attacks and not escalating the situation, potentially. But I don't know. I feel like they are gonna have to hit hard and hit soon to make it have any difference in the Ukraine right now, and not just prevent Russia from moving for a little while on other European nations.
I think Putin's whole calculus on this has been one of guessing that NATO either doesn't want to react or is not able to react fast enough. So that will
Yeah,
drive the
correct.
rest of his responses.
I
He
hope
doesn't
NATO's
expect.
playbook. I hope NATO's playbook for cyber warfare isn't the same as it is for traditional, because he's been correct so far in predicting.
Yeah, but deploying cyber warfare basically would be against what? Banks, Russian banks, Russian infrastructure. Basically,
Military
you would
technology,
be,
Russian
yeah,
infrastructure, Russian banks, disinformation campaigns, utilities.
Yeah, well, attacking
Eh,
utilities basically would be hurting innocent Russians. It's
right,
it's
but you can hack the
cyber
military,
warfare
etc.
and cyber attribution is currently, and excuse my language, it's a shit show. And the thing is about deploying cyber. Yes, of course it can be deployed, and but what can cyber do to slow down the actual damage and the actual cost being levied on Ukraine and Ukrainians? Granted, it might start some domestic problems within Russia,
Well,
which
wait,
might
you're
lead.
ignoring military infrastructure being able to be hacked. That would be the main target, I would assume.
Yeah, sure. Well, hacking a base in Russia is not going to stop forward deployment of
I mean, you
troops
could
that
hack the
are using
communication
some.
systems
Yeah, sure,
of
jamming
the.
and yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're talking about electronic warfare, right? So basically,
Yes.
you want NATO and American assets or the West to start supporting Ukrainian assets, deploying electronic warfare against the invading forces. Well, yes, they should be doing something like that, but then again, that's an intervention in the conflict. And then Putin said that, well, if anyone intervenes and tries to stop us from exacting whatever revenge we have for whatever revisionist reasons we have against Ukraine, we're going to retaliate, which is basically a veiled threat of nuclear warfare. Granted, he doesn't have that in his calculus, and that would be bloody stupid of him to pursue. And I doubt that even his own henchmen right now, despite the weak show of input into the decision-making process, would put on that shit show again and stand behind him or around him or across of him and say, yeah, sure, let's launch nuclear strikes against whoever's intervening against us or deploying electronic warfare or cyber against us. Cyber is a very broad term right now, and I see it used in many wrong ways. Well, if you want to deploy cyber warfare and mix it up with something like what Patrick said, plausible deniability, well, like Russian hackers, for instance, defacing Ukrainian hackers defacing Russian websites to send a strong political message of we're fighting, what you're doing is wrong. Yeah, sure, but that all falls under more of psychological operations and electronic warfare. It's not really cyber warfare. It's not another.
Well, it's disinformation. But I do think that hacking and cyber warfare could be used against military infrastructure and have plausible deniability that those groups were not state sponsored. I mean,
Yeah, sure, but then
Russia
again, you're
does it all
not
the
any
time.
better than your enemy. That's number one. And number two, it's a very, very, very limited impact on actually reversing what's happening on the ground, affecting millions of innocent civilians. Yeah, sure, we can do that. Someone can do that. But then again, what is the end game? It's like hack back, hack back, and then what? You know, we've been seeing this happening for the last what, since the attack against the Iranian nuclear facilities. And well, Stuxnet, basically the first deployment of a cyber weapon, and then what? And then everyone started like lashing out against everyone else, and it actually lost its meaning at this point. Granted, someone can have a better idea of how to deploy it in a better framework that actually achieves uh, goals that you can calculate and say, yes, I achieved this, and this has a second derivative that actually resulted in that, and that helped save lives, save innocence, stop the conflict, deter the enemy. Right now, it's just, a broad
Well,
term.
military is nothing without their digital infrastructure, and I do think we have yet to see a successful attack on military infrastructure or a full-blown cyber warfare. So
Yeah, but
I mean,
everything old is new again. That's why you see, soldiers marching around wearing security bands around their arms and their wrists to, friend or foe. There are the Western mindset of depending on networked assets, basically, and computer networks in running your military. It's advanced. It provides state-of-the-art communication systems. It provides real-time command and control. But you have to bear in mind that the enemy always gets a vote. And a pencil works in space instead of developing $1 million pen by NASA that also works in space.
correct. Yes, great.
So
great.
That's the problem, actually, is that the enemy can actually resort to using bloody pigeons to communicate if their networks are down.
Yeah, no, I think that all of this is hypothetical, though. We have yet to see a full-scale cyber warfare or really know what. I mean, those are the most secretive movements that are going on, movements, quote unquote. So I just wish that we would see some sort of retaliation in that way to start something else. I do think that Russia does it very effectively and has used it to take over places like Crimea, essentially. More disinformation in that instance, or um, be in the terms of Crimea, be like kind of the gateway to letting in other forces. And they are great at plausible deniability. I'm kind of saying we should use their playbook back against them.
Well, one thing that, as far as Russian information or Russian hacking, I'm sorry, as far as Russian cyber attacks go, is Russia is basically considered the hacking capital of the world. They have the leading hacking convention every year, and they caught a lot of heat for it because it's basically a Russian recruiting tool. But when Russia does do the cyber attacks and it does infiltrate critical infrastructure in the United States, it's usually not targeted. And once they make that that initial, I'd compare it to a virus. Once they make that initial program, that initial virus, that initial hack, and it spreads throughout the system, if someone in Russia would open up that email or access whatever activates that virus, then Russia would be infected with it too. And as far as like specifically, there's electronic warfare, which is jamming, radar jamming, stuff like that, which is different from a cyber attack. And I think they're very two different things. And the Russian cyber attacks on the United States usually aren't targeted. They're broad and wide, and they can affect Russian computers just like American computers. So I would just keep that in mind, that is what Russia is known for. But in order to do that, the United States would have to let loose a virus amongst all the technological infrastructure in the world, and I just think that's something that the United States is against. Doctor, did you have something to say? Stan? All right. Jack? I'm sorry, I didn't.
Sorry,
I
you're
pressed
good. You're good.
mute. I pressed
No,
mute everyone. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you
I
muted
agree.
me. I was like, whatever.
I was wondering
It's
why
a
I was
big
alone all of a
hypothetical.
sudden.
Now, I wanted to ask Walter if he heard anything about this explosion that happened about 20 minutes ago. He mentioned it and then went looking for something, but he never came back in Kiev.
Is he AFK?
Before that, I would like to just add to the previous discussion that currently Russia is the most attacked country, and if you go on the Kaspersky cyber map, you will see a list of all the attacks going on currently and the types of
There you go. That's what I would. Yeah, and I was just asking if there's anything
around
retaliation. So obviously Russia's the big hacker.
360K attacks since 9 a.m. GMT, all straight to Russia.
And those
Coming
could not be state sponsors. Those just could be, hackers who have a problem with the situation and want to take some sort of vengeance. That might not be the military or NATO, U.S., whatever.
coming from all over the place, US, South Africa, Europe, everyone's trying to get in on that.
Could you send me a link to where you're getting some of that info?
You just type cybermap.kaspersky.com.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Yeah, I think we might be getting to get to the end of the kind of beating cyber as a dead horse, but yeah,
Sorry,
it's a tool of indiscriminate use. It's very, very hard to be targeted.
Well,
And even
it
if
can
you
be
could take
targeted
out,
though.
say,
If you look at
even if you
infrastructure
could
hacks,
take
whether
out,
they target an institution or a public utility or even something as simple as a ransomware attack, yes, they make that code they inspire other hackers, but they're not unleashing a virus like you do a plague, like a human virus. There are viruses like that, and you could do that. That would be indiscriminate, but there are many methods of hacking.
but what I mean in the terms of trying to affect the situation on the ground has kind of been touched on. You could maybe go after their communications, but I'd be willing to bet they've almost got hard lines running back to Moscow. So they've got their own telephone network that you'd have to somehow take out. Knowing Russia, it's probably still steam powered. They've got satellites, but they would just fall back on their the Russian forces aren't networked in the same way that ours are.
I see.
So it'd be very, very difficult. If generally I don't want to say Russia's behind, but they are much better at designing for redundancy and making sure it works every time, or they have a backup. And what they do have will be not crude, but
less than
technologically more simple.
Yeah. Well, and that would, in my, and I agree with you. I just, as a counterpoint, I do think that would make it easier of a target for some people because they understand it more, and it's not new, cutting edge like something that hasn't been attacked before. I'm just hoping that we see that form of retaliation before we see any sort of real military action as a preemptive action to kind of scatter their forces and their, command centers. Do you get what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, no, definitely.
I
just would be concerned about how effective it would be.
Is Walter AFK? Did he hear anything on that explosion?
I do believe he is AFK right now. I'm not sure whether he's looking into it or what. I'm gonna add someone else. Let's see.
I mean, I could see Russia even trying to shut down information coming out of the Ukraine for purposes of not spreading the information to the West to groups like this. So I could see them hacking into cellular communications and internet infrastructure in Ukraine, and then we don't have as much info about what's going on.
That has been done a few times over the past couple of days, but it has been restored in a matter of minutes. There was also a couple circumstances where websites got hacked and the server went down, and the website immediately kicked to a backup server and went back up. So Ukraine is taking steps against it. I'm not sure how in depth, and I'm not sure what help they have had to do that. But I know,
and I would say that's probably what other allies helping them build up that infrastructure and have that defense. But
right, and I would agree with that. Covertly, there's probably something going on, but that's just speculation. So,
not to butt in at all, but Rob Lee, I've just retweeted something from Rob Lee that is a geolocation of Russian forces going through Nova Kharkova, north of Crimea. So they're making some progress up that way.
Headed north, I assume.
Big Z. Yeah, I haven't checked the map, but yeah, it's been geolocated, so it's pretty good.
And is that tanks and artillery, or
T-72, D-30 howitzers, EW, C2, all good stuff.
Okay.
Tanks with roof screens, all fun things.
Okay. Graph?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Well, I just had a couple of things, but the first thing I wanted to say is that to share some relatively good news of Ukraine, it now reports having shot down 7 Russian planes. So yay for that number going up.
No, that is good. I can't. I'm ready for more information of whether it's air to air or service to air.
I can't tell, but
right.
I've also heard that Russian forces have demanded the surrender of Ukrainian forces on Snake Island. I don't know the Ukrainian pronunciation of that word, so I'm just using the English translation, which is a military installation out in the Black Sea.
And where's this?
It's by the mouth.
Have you retweeted this?
What?
Have you retweeted it? Just so
no, I haven't. I can do that right now for you if you want.
Okay.
And thanks guys for because I'm taking my for the first time. Thanks guys for creating the space. The one and the two actually. 2 pieces of info I just got was that I don't know if it was discussed, but the president of Lithuania, Gitanas Nausėda, had introduced a state of emergency throughout Lithuania, and also another piece of news, the one that I actually so desperately want to get the mic for, was that I got access to the information that I was able to confirm that the Polish government has announced the location of 8, probably there will be more, but 8 at this moment, reception centers for the refugees fleeing Ukraine. And this will be on the 7 of the border crossings with Ukraine and 1 of border crossing with Belarus. That's interesting. And I retweeted the location, and that's the kind of information that I would actually, if it will be able to verify from more than one source. The one source that I already shared from, it's reputable enough, I believe. But I would like to wait for confirmation from multiple sources. That might be worth sharing because it might be something that's relevant enough for people on the ground that it might actually help might help with evacuation of the people who unfortunately found themselves in this dire situation, in the dire situation that's worsening with every minute as we listen to the news that's coming. So yeah, that's basically the thing. So I retweeted the names of those 8 reception centers. There are Hrebena, Zosin, Slevetica, Drohusk, Kochova, Medica, Budomis, and Krusenko. And those reception points actually, as now I'm reading, were prepared for some time. Were prepared for a couple of days before, but they will be officially open this afternoon. I don't really have information when exactly, but yeah, that's the thing that I want to share. Thanks.
That's a good point. That was kind of suspected when there were rumors floating around that Poland closed their borders. And then after Germany made a statement saying that they'll provide everything that they can to Poland to help with refugees. But that's good to hear that they're stepping up if things do escalate and people do need a place to go, that they've had enough time to plan and are semi-prepared for the worst that can happen.
Well, I can say that the preparations were going on for quite a while. At least, well, probably there wouldn't be enough for the scale of what is to come. But even 2 weeks ago, there were informations about preparations on regional level, about coordination between regional governments, looking and giving info about possible locations where the refugees could be temporarily housed and the resources that the government had. So the preparations were certainly going on in the background, but due to the fact that it wasn't mostly coming from the sources that would allow me to believe that it wasn't widely disseminated. But in Poland, it's quite widely known that the preparations were going on for quite some time, and well, I don't see any confirmation of the possible border closure. I don't really think that is. I would even really suspect. I would even highly suspect, to say the least. Possibly a piece of disinformation, because I'm along the lines of the SMS messages that have been sent to that reportedly some people in Ukraine were receiving, with containing false information about the routes of evacuation, about border closures with Romania, about threats to the families of the soldiers that I'm reading right now. Yeah, I'll try to keep you updated, but I need to dive deeper into it.
Okay.
Do you think that they
Walter,
will
were you able to make it back?
Sorry, say again, please.
I was just wondering if Walter was able to make it back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Y'all can go. I just wanted to. All right.
I was just wondering if you think we're going to see an increase in disinformation campaigns now that Ukraine has said that they're going to arm civilians or militia groups, I guess. I don't know what Zelensky means by give weapons to.
Oh, sorry to interrupt. One over breaking news. Lithuanian president has started consultations regarding implementing the Article 4 of the NATO treaty. It's not the Article 5. It's the one about the one regarding
Creates a summit, right?
Yeah.
Of all the leaders to meet regarding.
Yeah. 7 minutes ago, the Lithuanian president called for one.
I have a few updates as well. Coming from Romania, the president, which is also German, just finished his speech. Pretty much said that our country is more prepared than has ever been. We are not going to engage in a war, and all the borders are opened for the refugees. And apparently, there's like 2 kilometers of cars lined up trying to get in our country, and that there's also a lot of other countries willing to deploy forces in our country in case anything or bad happens or there's any aggression. Although it was pretty reassuring saying that there's little to no chance of more than whatever happened until now.
Okay, that's good to hear. I also saw something from the president of Portuguese who made a statement in support of Ukraine and basically pledged his support to the people of Ukraine. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that in the hours to come. I'm waiting for a major statement, which has not happened yet, which I'm pretty surprised about. Unless anyone else has heard any major statements. I know there was a NATO security meeting.
Yeah, the Article 4, Lithuanian president
Right.
calling for an Article 4. That's, I think they're probably going to wait until after that summit, I would assume, so if they're all on the same page. That's just
Right.
speculation.
Well, as
So
of
I
an
actually
hour
have
ago, it was
I
taking place. So I'm not
Yeah,
sure
this,
if it's
the
finished
statement
yet.
is out. The statement is
It
out.
is?
Yes.
Okay.
yeah,
The
that's just
statement reads as follows, if anyone's interested.
Yes, you can read it.
UK Foreign Secretary summons the Russian ambassador.
Statement by the North Atlantic Council on Russia's attack on Ukraine. We condemn in the strongest possible terms Russia's horrifying attack on Ukraine, which is entirely unjustified and unprovoked. Our thoughts are with all those killed and injured and with the people of Ukraine. We also condemn Belarus for enabling this attack. This renewed attack is a grave violation of international law, including the UN Charter, and is wholly contradictory to Russia's commitments in the Helsinki Final Act, the Charter of Paris, the Budapest Memorandum, and the NATO-Russia Founding Act. It constitutes an act of aggression against an independent, peaceful country. We stand with the people of Ukraine and its legitimate democratically elected president, parliament, and government. We will always maintain our full support for the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine within its internationally recognized borders, including its territorial waters. We call on Russia to immediately cease its military action and withdraw all its forces from, in, and around Ukraine, to fully respect international humanitarian law and to allow safe and unhindered humanitarian access and assistance to all persons in need. We strongly condemn Russia's decision to extend recognition to the separatist regions of eastern Ukraine. This further violates Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity and contravenes the Minsk agreements to which Russia is a signatory. Allies will never accept this illegal recognition. We urge Russia in the strongest terms to turn back from the path of violence and aggression it has chosen. Russia's leaders must bear full responsibility for the consequences of their actions. Russia will pay a very heavy economic and political price. NATO will continue to coordinate closely with relevant stakeholders and other international organizations, including the EU. Throughout this crisis, NATO, the Allies, and our partners have made every effort to pursue diplomacy and dialogue with Russia, including at the highest levels, and made many substantive proposals to enhance the security of all nations in the Euro-Atlantic region. We have repeatedly invited Russia to talks in the NATO-Russia Council. Russia has still not reciprocated. It is Russia and Russia alone which has chosen escalation. Russia's actions pose a serious threat to Euro-Atlantic security, and they will have geostrategic consequences. NATO will continue to take all necessary measures to ensure the security and defense of all allies. We are deploying additional defensive land and air forces to the eastern part of the alliance, as well as additional maritime assets. We have increased the readiness of our forces to respond to all contingencies. Today, we have held consultations under Article 4 of the Washington Treaty. We have decided, in line with our defensive planning, to protect all allies, to take additional steps to further strengthen deterrence and defense across the alliance. Our measures are and remain preventive, proportionate, and non-escalatory.
Our commitment to Article 5 of the Washington Treaty is ironclad. We stand united to defend each other. So basically, please go back home, stop doing this. We're standing together, and if you dare attack one of us, we're going to annihilate you. So, yep, his calculus is spot on.
That was great TLDR.
I thoroughly enjoyed the ending. So
Yeah,
a new
I
report,
try sometimes. Sorry. Got carried away. Bit dramatic.
a report from Ukraine's presidential aide that was just released says that over 40 Ukrainian soldiers have been killed and several dozen wounded. Which is not a positive of today. And there was a report earlier today from a Ukrainian official that said civilian casualties will likely be in the hundreds. And that was at the pinnacle where we didn't know how far things would get tonight. So we hope it's not that bad, but only time will tell.
Just NATO response. I just wanted to say that the NATO Secretary General is going to be having a presser in about 20 minutes. Just so you're informed of that happening.
I guess I'm moving back my bedtime then.
Yeah.
From 5 a.m. to 6 a.m.
And there are some informations yet unconfirmed, but I see that they probably quite well known. Bill journalist has shared them that the Russian forces have reached and established that the Russian forces were able to reach one of the crossings over the Dnieper River near Kherson, and that they were able to cross the Dnieper. That the bridge was not. That the Ukrainian army was not able to stop them. That there are supposed videos, but I have to get confirmed how well they were geolocated. The source claims they were geolocated for about 140 kilometers inside Ukraine. That's just so you guys were aware of those claims that are circulating. I don't really know, but if that's true, that means that the Ukrainian resistance in regions bordering Crimea was it's hard to say what happened to the Russian defense of those regions.
Right. One thing that I expected to happen tonight that didn't was destruction of the bridges. I think maybe it didn't get to that point, but I do think that was in Ukraine's plan at some point.
Crossing the Dnieper is really, really bad. Really, really bad. They at least forced the Russians to use their bridging equipment. Like, may have had a couple of hours, but yeah, huge. Someone just needs to put a artillery shell through that bridge.
Right. One thing, very extremely off topic, but one thing about Switzerland is Switzerland, when they engineer their bridges and their railways and their critical infrastructure going into Switzerland, they engineer it in the plans. They also have plans to blow it up in case they're ever under a threat of invasion. But that is a very useful tool to have in a sticky situation.
I think South Korea has similar arrangements with their bridges and tunnels going north-south.
Right, and a lot of it's geographic, because all of a sudden you plan to go over a bridge and now you have to hike a mountain in a tank. So I'm not. It's part of it's geographic, but I do think that should have been in Ukraine's plans. Grammar, are you still here? Grammar?
Looks like the only news out of Russia, and again, this could all just be, always take it with a grain of salt right now, but he is calling for a top meeting of business leaders, most likely to calm the markets. Nothing else I've heard from them on the current situation in Ukraine.
You said that was Russia?
Yes, he's called for a meeting of the Kremlin of the top business leaders.
So the 10 oligarchs?
Yeah, so all of his homies are gonna meet up with the Kremlin, I guess.
Yeah. Let's do a roll call real quick so I can just make sure everyone's here. If you could throw up an emoji or something, that way I can get people who are not here out.
Yeah, market losses today are crossing $230 billion, so that meeting makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's what the average Russian person who wasn't concerned about the invasion will be concerned about now, is its effect on the economy.
Yeah, and exchange rates as well.
Black smoke seen rising over Defense Ministry Intelligence HQ in central Kiev.
I'm gonna map that. What was that building?
Defense Ministry Intelligence HQ in central Kiev, and that's from First Squawk, saying that it's a witness. I've never seen them.
Okay, well, I hope he is here. First Squawk has tweeted so much information in the past 12 hours, and he wasn't on my radar. He wasn't in my intel circle until tonight, but especially tonight, because he has tweeted a lot of things that have been disproven. But I'm gonna look at the maps. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm assuming that people are falling victim to disinformation.
Right. Let me see. I'll be able to tell you in a second. No, see, okay, so I'm not sure if you've looked at it in live streams, but the live stream of Kiev Square with the statue in the middle.
Yes.
The Central Defense Ministry is in that view behind that. So if something would have happened to that building, we would be able to see it.
Okay, so they are definitely falling victim to some kind of disinformation or just misinformation.
Right. They're either making stuff up or not looking into what they're hearing.
So the purpose of the account is to tweet stuff about that might affect the markets or, market movement. So it's kind of surprising that they're even tweeting that.
You tweet something viral that gains followers. As you said, it's First Squawk, right?
Yes. Yeah, he's pretty indiscriminate. I think it's just, oh, it sounds good, seems legit, TM, and then sends it. I think there's very, very little. Like, there are definitely some, air quotes, OSINT accounts that will just send anything and everything that seems mildly plausible, and even the less plausible stuff as well.
Well, that's not good.
Is anyone else getting a lot of spam messages with malicious links?
No.
You're talking about Twitter or SMS?
Yes, my DMs are kind of flooded with all kind of people sending phishing links.
Curious to see what the profiles look like. Could you send me the of some of these malicious accounts? Because I want to see if they are just Russian troll accounts or malicious accounts for any general purpose. Because you are in a space with a large space with a lot of people, so could be a target because of that. Could be.
Yeah, sure. I'm gonna take a screenshot of my block list and send it your way.
Thank you.
I'm hosting it and haven't gotten any. My DMs might be closed though. Regardless, and this goes.
Your DMs are closed.
Okay, I'll fix that. But this goes to everyone. Earlier today, it was, I can't remember it specifically, but a Ukrainian government website was hacked. And I have the translation right here. And it said, Ukrainian, all your personal data has been uploaded to the public network. All information about you has become public. Be afraid and expect the worst. This is for your past, present, and future. For Volin, for the OUNUPA, for Glacia, for Policia, and for historical lands. Do you need proof? See the link at the end.
Yeah, that's state-sponsored hacking for sure.
Right, and for whatever reason, they were trying to get people to click on the link. But it's, especially with everything going on right now, in situations like that or DMs from weird people, I wouldn't click any links, especially in general. But right now, with everything going on, and listening to Intel communities and being a part of the Intel community, I wouldn't risk
Even
any of
from
that.
the other side, I'm sure that there are opportunistic hackers that, you know, you might think you're clicking on something to do with supporting Ukrainian refugees, whatever. Always verify it before you go through and get hacked, guys. Because people suck.
That's a general thing for everyone, by the way. I would probably close your DMs if you're in this. Just most of unless you're doing this as a job or you're a journalist, I would just shut everything down. Keep yourself safe first and foremost. If you want to start talking to someone, follow them back, etc. But just as a first sieve, put some lines of defense in. Just keep you lock yourself down. Same thing across all of your social medias and whatnot.
Well, it looks like Europe is dark, going to sleep. Hopefully everybody's going to sleep, soldiers included. I will most likely pick this up again tomorrow, maybe start a little bit earlier when it's daylight in Europe. But right now, there's no real action going on, which is fortunate, at least not that I know of. So please come back tomorrow, and please stay rational, everybody. No war. Death of people is unacceptable. Needless, silly, dumb deaths of people are is just, I can't even conceive of what the hell's going on in Europe, because I think of, what if it happened here? Oh, what if there was silence and I had to run? I can't even, I can't put that into a context in my brain. So yeah, for that, I'm gonna end it right now, and